Hi, my name is Gerry Langan. I am 32 years old. I live in Satellite Beach, Florida, and I was diagnosed with pulmonary arterial hypertension, the idiopathic version, in 2018, and severe congestive heart failure as a secondary result. In 2018, my husband, who is in the military, was reassigned to Colorado. And while we were in Colorado, I started having side effects and I guess symptoms of like what would now be considered PAH. But at the time, it looked a lot like postpartum stuff. I have twin 4-year-old boys. And at the time, when we moved to Colorado, they were about 6 months old. The symptoms started showing up right when we got there, but like it looked a lot like altitude sickness, being short of breath, tired with exertion, headaches, and that kind of stuff. So it looked a lot like dehydration and altitude sickness. Well, I was just like dehydrated and having altitude sickness for like 6 months. And I was like, well, this is so weird because my husband and the kids had adjusted. And I started thinking, well, maybe I'm just out of shape. Like there are a lot of things that PAH has that looks like other things, which makes it so hard to diagnose. So I was having extreme fatigue. I was having hard time walking from like my car to the front door, all of that while carrying twins. Everything was just like compounded on top of each other. And then I was just like sluggish. And then I started thinking, well, maybe I haven't worked out since I was pregnant. Maybe I'm just out of shape. My husband told me I should probably start working out. So I started working out and nothing got better. He actually left for about 5 weeks. And while he was gone, I gained 20 pounds while working out. And I was like, this is the reverse effect of what I thought was going to happen. I told him that, I was gaining weight and I thought maybe I'm pregnant because like these things also look like pregnancy, shortness of breath, chest pain. Now I'm gaining weight. I'm swelling, being tired all the time. It was just weird. Like there were just a lot of symptoms that all like ran together. And then I was also having like lots of bad allergies. So I was like, having like sinus infections, like it was a big struggle. When he came home, we left for a wedding in North Carolina at sea level. And when we got to North Carolina, I immediately felt like I could breathe a little better, but I was swelling like pretty significantly in my legs when we got off the plane. And my dad actually pointed out that they were like really big. So I made a doctor's appointment because my parents were on my case the whole time. I got back to Colorado on, Monday. I had my appointment. The blood work that the doctor took wasn't going to come back for like 24 to 48 hours. And then Tuesday morning, I woke up and couldn't get out of bed because my legs were so swollen. They were like freaking tree logs. So I actually fell trying to get out of bed. And I told my husband, hey, I think I need to go to the doctor. He was like, but you were just at the doctor. And I was like, I can't even walk. So I actually drove myself to the ER. It was crazy. It was just a whirlwind after that. Lucky for me, I went to the ER at a clinic that was a sister clinic to Denver's hospital, which is one of the best pulmonary hypertension clinics in the country. So they kind of knew what they were looking at. So I was very fortunate in that. But, like at this point, it had been going on for like almost 8 months. Yes and no, it was kind of quick. But at the time when I finally went to the ER, they did diagnose me within like the week. So like I got admitted when they figured out what they thought it was. They did a right heart cath. They didn't wait for any of that stuff, which I'm very thankful for. And then they misdiagnosed me with mild pulmonary hypertension and mild congestive heart failure. They did pull 2.5 liters of fluid out of my stomach. So that was crazy. I lost a lot of weight very quickly and I started feeling better. And then they said, we're just going to send you to the specialist in Denver and you can see, how it went. They readmitted me, redid all the tests, and came back with, you actually have severe congestive heart failure and severe pulmonary hypertension. And if you don't start treatment immediately, you're going to die. I was like, sweet. So I guess we're going to start treatment. So I started IV treatment in the hospital. It kind of sucked because at the time we didn't know that I was allergic to everything. So they like cleaned me with ChloraPrep. They put a Tegaderm on me and all of those things immediately started a reaction with my IV. And then after that, everything just kind of went downhill with IV. I did get better because I was getting the medicine, but I was having like external problems because of my skin. So I actually ended up on the IV. And then a week later, after I started IV, we moved to Alabama. So my doctors were like, you can't like just stay. Like you can't just like stay here. Like we're trying to take care of you. And I was like, I have to go. Like my husband just got sent to Alabama. Like we have to move. So we moved to Alabama and I was in the hospital 6 times in a year, like every other month for like a couple of weeks with line infections, just so many issues with my line. Like I just couldn't catch a break when it came to the line. So like I got better, my heart got better and everything started looking better, but the line itself did not do well for me. So they moved me to an oral medicine. And then after 10 months on the oral, I actually failed it and had to go back to pump. So now I'm on SubQ. We've moved a lot. We've been married for 7 years and we've lived in 8 houses and 4 states. We had to move to Florida like right in the height of 2020. He had just finished flight school. I transferred to Mayo Clinic and they've been great, but it was right in the middle of COVID. So I was doing telehealth, trying to start care and then trying to end care in Alabama through telehealth. It was like really weird. It was like a really weird transition time, but luckily Mayo is great. So I didn't have a lot of trouble with the switch to them. Trying to get away from Alabama was the difficult part. I have a really close relationship with my doctor. We've done a lot of legislative work together too, which has been really awesome. They have been really big supporters of me, and I really appreciate that. I haven't always had the best care. Denver was great. I have a very close relationship with Denver's team still. They're my second opinion all the time, which I think probably contributes to like why I'm doing well is because my doctors still work together, which isn't always the case when it comes to doctors, you know. I have been feeling a lot better and being at sea level is helping. Now I'm on clinical trial also. We can only guess right now, but we think I'm getting the drug and that has been helping. So I got a good report like a month ago when I went in for my echo. There's been a lot of like talk about sotatercept being a new big drug in PAH. And I had heard it on social media. I'm a social media influencer, I guess. So I've heard a lot of people talk about it. That has been really cool to like hear it from other people who have been on trial. So like I'm on like the 3rd phase of trial. So I know people that have been on 1st and 2nd phase and I've heard amazing things about it. I actually started to ask my doctor about it, but he got to me before I got to him. He was like, hey, if you haven't heard of this trial, we're thinking about starting it. We think that you're a good candidate because now I'm stable. Being stable obviously is a big deal to be on trial. And then while I was considering it, obviously there's a lot of things that go with that, having kids, having a husband that's gone all the time. And also we live 2.5 hours from clinic. So I travel 5 hours round trip. So all of that stuff had to factor into clinical trial. But my doctor in Denver actually called me up and said, if your doctor hasn't heard of this trial yet, it's really important and you could benefit from it. And the stuff that we've seen, because they were phase 2 and then Mayo is phase 3. And he was like, in phase 2, our patients have been getting a lot better. And we think that you would be a great candidate for it. And you should ask your doctor about it. So because both teams decided that it would be really good for me. So like, I was like, sure. I mean, I guess we can do it. I started in January. It's a 21-month trial. There's 2 phases to the phase 3. And there's like an A and a B portion, I guess. So there's the short term is 6 months. So I'm coming up on my 6th month. If I do well or if I want to continue, it goes on for the next 12 months. When I was diagnosed in 2018, I was in the hospital in Denver and I just started IV. I had never heard of this disease and it was really scary. I was like a freaking disaster. I was crying all the time. I like was in the hospital, not sure what I was doing, but like my husband was taking care of our kids. We're in Colorado. We don't have any family or friends. I was just by myself and I was crying. And then the doctor came in and said, there's a girl that lives here who has the same story as you. And we told her about your story and she was very compelled to come meet you. They said, do you want to meet her? And I said, sure. So she came in and she had been on IV for like 2 or 3 years. And she just came strolling in and sat down and answered all of my questions. And, you know, at the time, I don't even think she or I realized how important that was going to be to me. But like, I think that seeing somebody be so normal was really like hopeful for me. And it gave me a lot of mental peace that if she could do it, I could do it. And like, that's just like my personality. Like if she can do it, I can definitely do it. She's like so kind and humble. And like her story was very similar to mine. She almost died and then Ivy saved her. And she like told me a lot of tips and tricks about like how to wear my pump, how to dress my dressing, things that doctors and stuff couldn't tell me about like practical use. So I started sharing my story because we were in Colorado and everybody was asking across the country, like, what the heck is happening? You're in the hospital. And I just didn't have like the mental mental capacity to respond to people. So we were sharing originally on social media so that people knew what was happening. And then the next thing I knew, people started asking. People with pulmonary hypertension started finding me and asking me, what are you doing? Like, how were you diagnosed? What were your symptoms? And then when I started sharing it, I started realizing that I really wanted to be that girl for somebody else, the girl that like gave them hope that they could be on, I'm on chapter 50 of my story. And like, I was on chapter 1 at that time. And it was really hopeful to see somebody on that chapter 50, knowing that there was more to what was going on at the time. So I started sharing my story, hoping to be a lot like her, because she was so brave and she came in and she was really vulnerable and shared the hard stuff with me. So I started doing that publicly because I started seeing a need for it online. Social media tends to be pretty negative, and Facebook was like really freaking scary. Facebook was about as scary as Googling the disease. So like I just didn't find any hope in those Facebook groups that were supposed to be hopeful. So when I started sharing it on Instagram, it kind of just caught fire, and now it's like crazy. It's been really cool to like share my tips and tricks from my lived experience, because nurses and doctors only learn what they learn through like a medical book. They don't get to practice that every day. Practical stuff has been really cool to share, but then it's also been really nice to see sharing on Instagram is saving people's lives, which is so nuts. I get some really cool stories, and people will contact me and say, hey, I got diagnosed and, I knew something was wrong, but it took your story pushing me over the edge to go to the ER or something like that. And it's really crazy that social media has that kind of power. They talk about it having power, but like you don't even see it until like people start telling you their stories. So like this weekend, I got to meet a bunch of people who were like diagnosed around the same time as I was, or like using the stuff that I put out there, which is crazy. But like social media now has like spiraled into one of those things where it's opened a lot of opportunities for me. Like I've been doing a lot of work with pharma on the patient side, just updating all their stuff. And I come from a marketing background, so like it's like a double-edged sword, right? So like you get to use me for both things. I've done a lot of legislative stuff with PHA and a couple of other organizations trying to change some laws that we've come across that have affected us personally, especially with my husband being military. So it's been really cool. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy experience. But I say it all the time. I think PAH has given me more than it's taken. And it's been a really cool ride. It's been interesting. I mean, it has had its highs and its lows, but it's given me a lot. And I've gotten a lot of cool experiences from it, and I've met a lot of really cool people from it. The one thing that I say to everybody is that sharing your story is how you take back power. In an uncontrollable situation, being diagnosed and having a disease that is progressive and uncontrollable, the only way that you can take control of the situation is how you respond to it. So sharing my story has been one of those ways. Even though like I'm not exactly in control, I do feel like I'm more in control because I've changed the way the narrative looks, and I don't want to be just another sob story. Like I don't want to die and feel like I didn't do anything with what was given to me. If anybody out there is not sure or feels like they're complaining when they share their story, I encourage you to share, because raising awareness means that people are out there looking for stories like yours. I'm Gerry Langan, and I'm aware that I'm rare.